recollection of gas being 20 cents. I don't remember how much gas was when I was a kid. I remember a phone call being a dime.
Well, you remember phone booths.
Yeah. Well, that's the one thing, the one skill. Well, I guess there were a number of skills that are just completely useless now.
Yeah.
You know what I was very good at? I was very good at dialing quickly. You know, like when you have to actually dial a rotary. My kids find those so quaint. I don't know if your children have ever seen a rotary phone. If you ever happen to come across one like in someone's house, my kids love it. My kids think it's the funniest thing. With Dad, you used to use this as a phone.
Like a dinosaur.
They think it's the funniest thing in the world.
It is. You know, I got to tell you, when I'm listening to Brian Billick, who was really good today, I loved his thoughts about the Giants and how, as a coach, you say, guys, I've seen your best. You can use it as a teaching moment. I'm going to argue this. The Jets are the easiest team in the league to handicap. 3 times this year, Greeny, on my Blazin' 5 picks. Twice I have made the Jets the pick of the week. In fact, I said my Buffalo pick was as good as pick of the year. Once I made San Francisco the pick of the week. 3 times in 6 weeks, they have been my pick of the week. They are the easiest team in the league to handicap.
And this week, they're a 9.5-point underdog last I saw. And we say?
They are easy to figure out because of this. Based on their limitations offensively, everything is based on the ability to run the football, create play-action passes. Coming off a game in which New England defended the run very well would worry me greatly as a Jets fan. New England's running the ball and not allowing you to run. This is a bad matchup for the Jets. This is a bad matchup.
I agree. Mike Colin Cowherd's in for Golick today. Timmy Kirchin live next from the National League Championship Series around the world of baseball. We'll go right after this. Mike, ESPN Radio. Remember, if you want more Mike in the morning, check out our new and improved webpage at espnradio.com.
Previously on Mike in the morning.
And when my body said, I'm not going to do this anymore, I'm through, it was mentally, it was devastating. It was devastating not to be able to perform because the bottom line, the great ones, not only do it for themselves and do it, but more importantly, they do it for their team. They stand up for their team and they play for their team. And I always felt it was my responsibility to go out there and play for the guys that I played with, for the coaches, for the equipment guys, for you name it, for the trainers, all those guys. That was my responsibility. And I took a lot of pride in that. And I believed that was my calling. And when my body stopped working, when my body just said, forget you, I'm not going to do it. I always tell this story. The last year I was playing, and I was struggling, man. My knee was really bad. And I'll never forget, we're watching film, and it's middle of the season, and I'm trying to make this comeback. And when we had these sweatshirts and everything else, and you couldn't see there was no number, right? It was just we're out there practicing. And I'm watching this guy limp around and just look awful. And I remember sitting in the film room watching, and I'm going, dang, who is that? That's all. And I realized, oh, shoot, that's me. That's me limping around. That's me looking like I'm towing a boat. And at that point in my mind, I was like, I can't play anymore. I cannot play at the level that I've played at my whole career in spite of being injured. I can't do it anymore. And it was devastating. And then you realize I'm more of a hindrance to my team winning than I'm a help. Man, it's one of the worst feelings I've ever had in my entire life. To sit there and say, finally to walk up and say, guys, you know what? You're better off without me.
I got this snapshot thing from Progressive. Plugged it into my car and got a discount just for being the good driver I've always been. I'm just out here snap shooting it forward. You don't want to have to pay for other people's bad driving, do you?
No.
With Progressive Snapshot, you don't have to.
I'm going to snap it right now.
Bam, there it is. Goes underneath your dash. Keep safe and keep saving. You know, I won't always be around to save you money. That's why you should get Snapshot from Progressive.
All right, dude. Thanks.
To the safe, go the savings.
This is impressive, Coach. It's the 12th man at their very best.
Hey, what's with the yell around here?
It's midnight yell practice, Coach. It's a Texas A&M tradition.
At this hour?
Hence the name Midnight Yell.
Crazy.
ESPN College Game Day, built by the Home Depot, Saturday.
Mike and Mike on ESPN Radio, the play-by-play courtesy WCBS. It certainly could be. With our buddy Colin Cowherd in for Golick this morning. Golick's voice still ailing, so we got half the herd. Well, we got the whole herd here, but we are half the herd. And Mike and Mike here this morning, and glad that you've chosen to start your day with us. Timmy Kirkjian joins us live now on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline. He is in St. Louis, where he managed to occupy his time. Give me a sense, Timmy, when you got a 3.5-hour rain delay in the middle of a game, how does a Tim Kirkjian keep himself busy?
Well, it was pretty bad, so I ended up tweeting out the 10 greatest sitcom characters of all time, which got a lot of play on Twitter yesterday. I'm not real good on Twitter, but I sure got a lot of response to that.
Well, who was number one?
Get Smart, Maxwell Smart.
Oh, very good, Colin. Very good.
I know that's Timmy Kirkjian's favorite sitcom. I don't know that I would agree with you that it's number one. He would be the number one character of all time. I know that would be Timmy's choice. Let's go then to the game itself. And I know anyone who ever read Timmy's book, which is called Is This a Great Game or What?, knows that there's no one in the world who would love this story more than you would when Carlos Beltran, who is as good a postseason hitter, frankly, as there has ever been, goes down, and the guy who steps into his place, who the average baseball fan may never have heard of, Matt Carpenter, goes up there and winds up hitting the 2-run home run that wins the game.
Right. Those things don't happen, fellas, as you know, in other sports, but they happen all the time in baseball. Matt Carpenter hits a 2-run homer off Matt Cain, which made him 5 for 5 lifetime off of Matt Cain. It ended up being the biggest hit of the game. And again, nobody replaces LeBron James in the lineup and, automatically hits the game-winning 3. That's exactly what happened here. But I'm a little worried for the Cardinals' sake because Carlos Beltran's had this knee injury before. There's a concern now how healthy he's going to be for the rest of this series. And as we know, he is Mickey Mantle when the postseason begins. It's very hard to see how he can go from a very good player to a great player as soon as October comes.
Tim, I have a recent theory on the National League. Always pick the Cardinals to win. I picked them to win the World Series. I don't know if it's scouting. I don't know if it's the culture, the clubhouse, La Russa. I couldn't turn that Nats game off down 6-0 because I felt they would chip away at it. Explain the culture. Who gets credit? There's no weak spot seemingly in this lineup. Guys get hurt. Other guys step up. How? Why? Why are they just simply better at that than everybody else in the sport?
Well, they've had more experience at it, Colin, and I think that's part of it. I was at that Nationals game, and I can tell you there was an unmistakable difference between where the Nationals were trying to learn how to win as opposed to the Cardinals who know how to win. And the contrast was absolutely unmistakable. And I think it comes from just being in St. Louis. I was here a year ago this time, and I'm telling you, people on the street were saying, I hope we keep Albert Pujols, but we can win without him. We are the Cardinals, and nothing here is more important than the name. And I think when you've played in Stan Musial's town and you've won this many world championships and you're the greatest franchise perhaps baseball history other than the Yankees, it just comes with the territory. But they've won so many difficult games like they won against Washington that when they get behind or they get in trouble, they just find a way to win, and it's all because they've done it so many times.
Mike and Mike, Timmy Kirkjian's on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline this October. Try the newest flavor phenomenon from Subway, the new low-fat Tuscan chicken melt Subway Eat Fresh. Timmy, what do we expect from Tim Lincecum, a guy who, was the multiple Cy Young winner, and then he goes to the bullpen. He throws extremely well out of there. Now they're going to give him the ball in a critical spot. What do you expect from him?
Well, I think he's going to pitch pretty well because I think eventually he has learned this year how to pitch at 91 miles an hour rather than 98 miles an hour. And most pitchers in baseball have to learn how to make that adjustment when you don't have absolutely overpowering stuff, which he simply doesn't have anymore. And most pitchers have to learn how to do this, and he is in the process of doing it. What he did in relief was really impressive because it is so rare for a career starting pitcher to go to the bullpen and be as good as he was. And he did it getting ready very quickly in the bullpen, which is extremely rare for a starting pitcher. But I also think he knows we're in big trouble right now because I got to pitch against Adam Wainwright at home. Cardinals have the pitching advantage perhaps the rest of the way, and if I don't pitch well in Game 4, we're not gonna get through this series. So I expect him to pitch really well because his stuff is still very good. It's just not the Tim Lincecum stuff of, say, 2 or 3 years ago.
I know you're watching the American League Championship Series. It's high drama. Anything with A-Rod is high drama, Timmy. Historically speaking, and you have a great sense of that, the idea of eating the contract or selling him and having to pay for virtually all of it as he plays somewhere else. I mean, we know Mike Hampton's contract wasn't good, or Barry Zito's. Has there ever been a team that just got rid of a player because he was bad karma, he was bad in the clubhouse? I don't, historically speaking, what do you compare the potential of A-Rod being shipped out to?
Well, the Red Sox got rid of an awful lot of money in the offseason on guys that, or at least 2 of them, that they just didn't think belonged in Boston anymore. But this certainly is bigger. And, I always say that there's no way they'll be able to move that contract. There's no way they're going to trade A-Rod. But I'm starting to think with the way things are going now that they're going to have to do this because you just don't bench a guy with this many home runs, with this kind of pedigree, and expect everything to be okay when he comes to spring training the next year. So I'm not sure where he's going. I'm not sold that, he's just going to end up with the Marlins in Florida and all that. But I'm really starting to think that one way or another, the Yankees are going to have to move this contract somehow. I don't know how they're going to do it without picking up 90% of it and just saying, all right, we're better off without you. But I think that's where they're going.
Timmy Kirkjian, stay dry out there in St. Louis. Thank you. Timmy Kirkjian with us in the Subway Fresh Take Hotline. Mike and Mike want to make sure you know for a limited time we are offering the ESPN Radio app for free. You can listen live, free to all your favorite ESPN Radio shows from over 30 radio stations. It's for all iPad, iPhone, Android, and Windows 7 users. You go to ESPNradio.com, download it today for free. It is sports for your ears. Marcellus Wiley on the way. Next question on the way. Colin in for Golick. We'll be right back.
Quiet. The Seminoles fight to stay in the BCS conversation while the Bears and Longhorns face off in a Lone Star State battle. Saturday Night Football, Florida State, Miami, or Baylor, Texas, Saturday at 8 Eastern on ABC. College football lives here.
Okay, who's having fantasy issues?
Yeah, all my receivers are busts. It's not fair.
Is it not fair? Or did you draft poorly? Who are you really mad at?
Myself?
Anyone else? I accidentally traded for a fullback.
You see that? You're not alone.
I have a coach on my roster?
Dude, out.
Discover an edge with fantasy football now. Sundays at 11 a.m. on ESPN2.
Remember, if you want more Mike and Mike in the morning, check out our new and improved webpage at ESPNradio.com.
We'll be back with Mike and Mike soon.
A future engine wear based on the industry standard Sequence 4A wear test. Learn more at QuakerState.com.
Painful last night of the regular disastrously bad shit made me stop and go. The power of Mike.
We are back and better than ever. Mike and Mike in the morning on ESPN Radio, live on your TV on ESPN2. We are presented by Progressive Insurance, and it is our pleasure to present this morning my friend Colin Cowherd, who's good enough to come in here on short notice with Golick still unable to speak. The big man croaked his way through about a half hour yesterday, and he just can't get the voice back together again. So Colin from The Herd on ESPN Radio and from Sports Nation and so much more, good enough to come in this morning, talk a little baseball, a little football. It's very nice to have you here.
It's great to be here. And, they asked me last night, and I'm like, as long as Greeny's cool with it, because I talk a lot. On my show, I have to fill a lot of time. And you enjoy talking. So I said, can we expand it to a 7-hour show to get all the words in? And I think we'll be just fine. You do get a catered breakfast. And I'd like to acknowledge right now to management listening, that is something we would appreciate if offered, and I'll just leave it at that.
The one thing about our breakfast, and I've said this before, is you got to get there fast because they put the little buffet out there at about 6:45 in the morning. By 6:47, there are people I've never seen before in my life.
Yeah.
They're over there taking a Danish. So we got a little bit of an issue with that.
You have engineers fighting off seagulls.
Yes,
I mean,
exactly.
it's a wild, mad scene outside our studio for those muffins.
We will definitely get into plenty of football when Marcellus Wiley gets here in our studio. Baseball leading the conversation this morning with the rain-delayed affair yesterday in St. Louis and the Cardinals taking the lead. No game with the Yankees yesterday, and the Tigers And each day that they play now, we anticipate could be the very last day for Alex Rodriguez in a Yankee uniform. Timmy Kirkjian was just on with us saying it's becoming increasingly clear to him. Buster Olney is projecting it, many others, that the Yankees will find some way to get a divorce from this Alex Rodriguez situation during this offseason. Now, you're like me. You're a fan of the story. And there really isn't another story that I can think of in sports quite like this one.
Well, divorce is a really good word. I mean, it really is. It feels like a Hollywood divorce. Star team, star player. And, let's be honest about Hollywood. You don't get the Tom and Rita Hanks very much, the late Paul Newman and Joanna Woodward. It's mostly Billy Bob Thornton and Angelina Jolie. I mean, that's the way Hollywood works mostly. And this, it was, it's really interesting when you think about it. Initially, didn't A-Rod want to go to the Red Sox? Players Union stepped in, said take less.
Yeah, well, he wouldn't. He was going to take less. They wouldn't let him take less. That's right.
And so you wonder if it was never really a match made in heaven. Immature player, sometimes not the most likable, went to an organization where they already had a star at his position. It's never been an ideal relationship. In a guy that sometimes missteps socially, it's the most aggressive newspaper town. One of the only towns left in America with multiple newspapers. A-Rod and the Yankees has never been an ideal fit.
It's true. And now it seems to be headed towards an almost tragic conclusion. It's almost playing out like a Shakespearean tragedy as he is being sort of held aloft for everyone's enjoyment as he is being humiliated during this series, sitting there on the bench saying, "Hi, Mom," when the camera comes on him. I mean, it's almost sad to watch what's happening at this point, and we'll see. Again, Buster Olney and just moments ago, Timmy Kirkjian saying that they think that the Yankees will find a way to get him out of town during this offseason, even if it means that they have to swallow $100 million of his contract.
Greeny, when the story came out with Lance Armstrong yesterday, I had suggested on our show that he wasn't the only user, but we need a face and a name on stuff. It's easier, instead of yelling at the clouds, to yell at a person. A-Rod, bad guy. This team is falling apart. Is he the beginning? Is he the face of what's wrong with this franchise? Old, bloated, home run reliant. That stadium cleared Saturday when they go down 2 runs. I don't think the city loves this Yankee team. I think the radio, TV ratings have been marginal at times, considering the names. Is he the beginning, the linchpin of what we see from Brian Cashman, younger, faster, more likable team in the very near future?
It certainly could be the case. It's what everybody's talking about, which is brought to you by Lowe's. Buy any Stainmaster carpet and pad from Lowe's. They'll install both for just $249. Lowe's, never stop improving. Offer valid through November the 5th. Some restrictions and additional charges may apply. See store for details. All right, Bubba, give me some music. We're going to do next question here, Colin. This is where our buddy Joaquin goes through all the inboxes. He's got the texts, he's got the tweets, he's got the emails. He sees the questions people are asking us, puts them up on the screen. We haven't heard them. We'll just go through them one at a time. Here we go. First question. Well, you did that all in one breath.
Yeah.
11-3-3 team.
Patriots easily. I said this last year. I thought they were overrated until they got good defensively, situationally late in the year, about week 12. This is a really good football team that has lost at Seattle, at Baltimore, Arizona early. I think it's the best Patriot team in years. I really do. And I think as Baltimore's falling apart physically, Houston loses Brian Cushing. I think New England's the best team in the AFC.
The team to watch, though, in that is Green Bay, who really should be 4-2 if not for the ridiculous call in the end zone. And when Aaron Rodgers is on, I think they can play with anybody. Next question. What day is tomorrow? I mean, I think that they are burying him. All right, I just threw my thought up on Twitter at ESPN Greeny on what I think they're going to do. They are burying him, both literally and figuratively. They are burying him right now. They're going to get rid of him.
However long it takes to bake a potato, less time than that. I would move him right now.
We're in agreement. Next question. What do you think?
Well, I've always thought Vic is fool's gold. Even in college, he was a 55% completion guy, 55 fumbles in 6 years in Atlanta. This is not Andy Reid, although the hiring and firing was clunky with Castillo. I think Michael Vick gets failed like it did at the end in Atlanta, and I think Reid survives it, and if he doesn't, he'll be unemployed like A-Rod will be a Yankee for about 45 minutes.
I don't know how quickly. Let me say this. If they don't make the playoffs, I think both are gone. I don't think Reed is back or Vic is back. But I actually think they are going to turn it around. I think the Eagles are going to make the playoffs. Next question. Okay, that's a good one. Now, you have to hear them in order to be able to judge. So, Bubba, let's lose the music for a minute. Here's Caliendo doing a little bit of us.
You're listening to Mike and Mike in the morning. Eventually, and it wasn't always that. But you're listening to Mike and Mike in the morning. That's what it's going to be by the time the show's run its course.
So that was when he did us, and here's his Colin, which he did on our show just the other day, and it was very funny, pointing out that you have a tendency sometimes to say something and then affirm it.
NBA players are freaks. They are. They just are. I don't get it. That's my favorite thing about it. I told him that, and he said, you know, my wife said that too. She did. She did. That's what she told me. I get it. I just get it.
I think it's very funny. I actually think his Colin is better than his Mike. If I had to pick one of those as funnier, Bubby can put the music back on. I think I would go the Colin.
People ask me, what did you make of Caliendo? Like I'd be offended. Like it's finally somebody's impersonating me. Thank you.
I begged him to do an impression of me for years, and he can't do it. His whole impression of me is just a nasal little I liked his Colin very much. Next question. False.
False. They'll represent the AFC's losing team to the Patriots. Belichick, Brady.
I did pick the Texans before the season. I say false because I think Baltimore's just falling apart at the seams. So if they win this game, I still don't think that they'll get there.
Keep your eye on the Steelers. Getting healthier.
They better win this week.
Schedule gets easier.
Fall to 2-4 if they lose. And you know another team to keep an eye on is Denver.
Oh, absolutely. Special teams are bad, though.
I'm going to say false. Listen, practically every legitimate date I ever went on in my single days was imaginary. So I don't know that there's any point even pointing that. Did you ever use a pickup line?
I talk about NFL spreads, and it just never worked out.
Yeah.
I'm not a real date guy.
Me neither.
I'm just not into it, really.
How did we ever wind up married to good-looking women?
I know. You have a beautiful, smart wife. What's going on?
I don't know. I think, you know what? I managed to get her drunk at the right time, and she said yes, and she was just too well-mannered to go back on it. You know, she just said, all right, what the heck. 15 years later.
Nick Saban's interesting.
You think he'd go back to the NFL?
Oh, absolutely.
You do?
Oh, there's no question. Listen, first of all, he's winning a bunch of games. Do you really want to go to more of those booster luncheons? I mean, recruiting, even though it's Alabama, SEC recruiting is tough, and he's aspirational. You know, Pete Carroll, they like to compete. And by the way, I've always argued with Nick Saban. Spurrier bombed in the NFL. He doesn't fit the NFL. Saban had the team doctors said you can have Drew Brees, he'd be in the league right now. Nick Saban is going to keep climbing this ladder for a few years.
I like that answer. I'll go with that, too. That's next question, which is brought to you by Red Wing Work Boots. Red Wing Work Boots are purpose-built for your work. Work is our work. I hadn't thought of that at all. Usually you go through all the usual NFL names, the Cowers, the Grudens, the this and the that.
Would Jerry give him the power?
Well, that's the question. You know, does he want to go? Does anyone want to go there and deal with being told what to do by the owner, which is the perception of what's going on in Dallas? You know what? Let's ask Marcellus Wiley. He'll be in our studio next after this word from 1-800-Flowers.com. Listen, there are so many reasons to show someone that you care. There's birthdays, thank yous, just because. We know the perfect gift. A beautiful bouquet of multicolored roses from 1-800-Flowers.com, where every order is backed by their 100% smile guarantee. We've met the people from 1-800-Flowers.com. They are florists at heart. They care about making sure that their product delivers the smile that they are guaranteeing. And right now, 1-800-Flowers.com has an amazing offer for our listeners. You can order a dozen multicolored roses. You'll get an extra dozen roses and a free glass vase. They'll throw that in free. So it's 24 roses plus a vase for just $29.99. Twice as many flowers plus the vase for one low price. Birthdays, for any reason, order this limited time offer today. Go to 1-800-Flowers.com from your desktop or your mobile device. Click on the radio microphone and type in Mike. That's 1-800-Flowers.com and type in Mike, or call 1-800-Flowers and make sure you mention Mike and Mike for the special offer. Marcellus next. Mike and Mike in the morning, ESPN Radio.
SVP and Russillo coming up Thursday, 1 Eastern here on ESPN News. A visit with Mike Krzyzewski, winningest coach in college basketball, fresh off yet another gold medal. At this point, what's left to do? And does he still feel the joy like he did back in the day at Army? A visit with Michael Wilbon on all things sports. And Chad Millman stops by. New ESPN The Magazine issue is out. NBA is the focus. And as always, we'll have some fun crunching the numbers looking ahead to the NFL weekend. Hope to see you right here on Thursday at 1 on SVP and Russillo.
The time has come. The time has come. The time has come.
It's a physical game.
Oh, Neil Bond! A monster jam by Blake Griffin.
Hey, let's go out of bounds with Mike and Mike.
If you were not with us early this morning, Golic was here for a little bit this morning. His voice was just a mess. He's been under the weather for the last few days, and you could barely even hear him when he was trying to talk. So we sent him home today, and I've had a variety of friends in here to keep me company, including this one. He is the head coach of the defending national champion Kentucky Wildcats. John Calipari is in our studio. It's good to see you, Coach.
Golic, a mama's boy?
Well, yes, but I don't...
What? This guy's supposed to be a big football player. His throat was hurting a little bit. I have to go home.
Listen, you said it, not me. I'm enjoying, with great passion, you are making fun of him. There's no question about it. Great to see you.
Thanks, Mike. And Mike, you just go get a little tea, little honey in your tea, and you sit back, toes up, we like to call that.
This just became the best day of my year.
I love Lexington. Hey, I don't believe. Forget about it. Go Gators!
Two non-believers on the set.
This is for my mother. This is for my chance at law school and the opportunity to change my life. Be one of the many winners of the Dr. Pepper tuition giveaway. Upload an original video telling your story and how you will make an impact in your community. Dr. Pepper is changing students' lives so we can change the world. Log on to ESPN.com. Search Dr. Pepper to submit your video for a chance to win. And tune into Dr. Pepper Championship Week on ESPN.
Your snoring sounds like a freight train. It's not healthy for you, and it prevents your partner from sleeping at all. You may search for solutions like nose strips, sprays, and other gadgets, but the proven way to eliminate snoring is to widen your airway. That's what dentists do with custom devices, but they cost thousands. Now there's an affordable solution. Introducing Z-Quiet, dentist designed and cleared by the FDA. Z-Quiet gently positions your lower jaw slightly forward to widen the airway and stop your snoring. Z-Quiet is comfortable and easy. It doesn't require boiling, fitting, or sleeping with a closed mouth like other mouthpieces. It's ready to use right out of the box. The soft material and patented flexible hinge provide comfort to stop your snoring the very first night.
So I ordered it, and it worked the first night. The snoring stopped instantly once I started using it.
Amazing for me.
Try Z-Quiet for 30 days for only $9.95. If Z-Quiet doesn't solve your snoring, send it back and never pay a penny more. Stop snoring now. Get Z-Quiet.
And I won't give in because I choose to thrive.
All right, we look forward to that. Marcellus Wiley's in our studio now. I've got a lot to tell you. Colin Cowherd is in for Golic today, which is fun. We're having a great time, plenty of football. Marcellus in our studio for a half hour to talk with us. It's great to see you. But right now, fellas, we've got our insider, Adam Schefter, on the line on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline with major news coming out of Baltimore. Shefty, go.
Well, thank you very much, Greeny, and hello to Colin, Marcellus, and everybody out there. But basically, the news this morning is that Ravens linebacker Terrell Suggs, who tore his Achilles in April, right at the weekend of the draft, is targeting and expecting to play Sunday versus the Houston Texans. This would be one of the more remarkable recoveries from this type of injury that we've ever seen in sports history. And I know that the Ravens have downplayed his chances of playing, but Ravens linebacker Terrell Suggs, his family, is planning to attend. His friends are planning to attend. They are all going to Houston with the anticipation that he's going to play in that game. Now, we'll see whether that actually holds true, but I can tell you that he thinks he's playing on Sunday right now.
Wow, that is remarkable. Adam Schefter with the very latest. Thank you, Shefty, on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline. I saw that come across. I said, let's get Shefty in here and break it. Marcellus Wiley, you know injuries, you know this situation. They've obviously been decimated now with the losses of Webb and Ray Lewis, and there's an injury to Haloti Ngata. This would be a remarkable recovery. What do you think?
I mean, I know this injury as well. I tore my Achilles 4th of July last year, and knowing the recovery process and the rehab process, after 6 months, which it will be for Terrell Suggs, you're strong enough to play the game. I don't know if you're explosive enough to play the game. I remember my surgeon saying directly after the surgery, asking him questions about the rehab and, you know, my situation. He said, it's not the Achilles that I fixed that you need to worry about. It's the other one. And so you think about that because he did fix his ailment. I don't think he would hurt himself again. I don't think he will re-injure the injury. It's just no training camp, no explosive work, 1 week of practice. Are you ready for a football game? Are you in football shape? And we know it's more than you just going out there and anchoring against runs or trying to get towards a pass situation and trying to bull rush a guy. You got to be explosive. You have to be on your toes. And the toughest thing about recovering from an Achilles injury is the fact that you can't get that toe flexion that you used to have, standing on your 2 feet. That's a difficult situation. Wishing him the best, but not expecting necessarily the best.
You know, it's interesting, maybe having spent a lot of time in Vegas, it's remarkable outside of quarterback how little players, even star players, matter. When Gronk got hurt before the Super Bowl, the Vegas odds makers didn't move the line a half point. And the feeling is outside of quarterback, and that can be up to 7 or 8 or 9 points if it's a Peyton or a Tom Brady if he's hurt. Between what you just said, Ray Lewis out, the cornerback Webb out for the year. If Suggs comes back, and even if he's 75%, I still think, I look at Baltimore today, they're not the same team as before. I had him in the Super Bowl. Even with him coming back, nobody thinks he'll be at 100%. I still think they have physically too much to overcome.
Well, I guess the question, and Ladarius Webb has somewhat quietly become one of the very best corners in the NFL. Guy hadn't given up a touchdown in 2 years.
Yes.
Now he's done for the year. So my question to you, Marcellus, is are Joe Flacco and the weapons he has on offense now, which he's really never had before, and Ray Rice still there, are they enough offensively to overcome, to do the opposite of what they've been? They've usually been the Achilles heel of this team. Are they good enough offensively now to overcome a banged-up defense?
Well, if you take a micro look at this team, especially over the last 2 years, you saw that identity change. This is a team that is led by its offense, and it's led by Joe Flacco and Ray Rice. And basically, if they have the running game going, then it opens up everything for this team. This defense, you look at its rankings, and against the run, you see how vulnerable they were against the Dallas Cowboys. And the Dallas Cowboys didn't go out there with a lot of flash in their running game. They just were able to push the line of scrimmage back 5 yards or so, and you saw that that they're ranking now 26th ranked against the run. This is a Ravens defense across the board that is not ranked in the top 10 in any major stat. With all that said, they have enough. There are only 2 teams in AFC that are above 500. And they're playing this weekend. It's the Ravens and the Texans.
I saw a really interesting stat, guys, on the Texans. Last year, they averaged, between the tackles, about 5 yards a carry. They're at about 3.5 this year.
Yeah.
So they've lost Cushing. They're not as physically imposing as we tend to think. I'm just looking at all the teams right now. I think the NFC is so much better than the AFC.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at the NFC East. The Redskins, who's the worst team in that division? The Cowboys?
Right now,
that's the most talented bad team in the league.
By the record, they're the worst team in that division. I don't know if they will be by the end of the season. Look, almost every division, with the exception of the South in the NFC, you can say that. There's not a bad team in the NFC North. There's not a bad team in the NFC West. I mean, the NFC is definitely the varsity, and the AFC is the junior varsity, but maybe that works in Baltimore's favor.
Yeah.
Because if there aren't that many great teams to go through, can they manage to get it through? But again, if you're just joining us, that was Adam Schefter with the news here live that Terrell Suggs, who just returned to practice yesterday from a torn Achilles in April, is targeting and expecting to play Sunday against the Texans. It's obviously a huge game. I feel like we've lost a little on the Texans because they didn't kill the Jets, and then they got really embarrassed a little bit by Aaron Rodgers. How down are you right now, Marcellus, versus where you were 2 weeks ago on Houston?
I mean, you take a hit. I mean, even as a fan, obviously you want to overreact to this situation. But as an analyst, you have to look at this and be objective. You're going to lose a game in NFL. And as Coach says, if you lose by 1 point, if you lose by 20 points, it's really just one L on the win-loss column. So I look at this team, and Colin hit on it. This team needs to get back to running the football, especially to its right side. They lost their tackle and their guard last year from this year. Now, all of a sudden, they're not running the football as effectively.
Well, they still have Arian Foster, who obviously is great. I think they can be as complete as any team in the NFL because they can run it with Foster, and they can be explosive offensively. And the defense, obviously, the loss of Cushing is a big one, but I still think they have a good defense. We'll see. We'll take a short timeout. Marcellus Wiley is here. We're talking football with him, and then Mark Mulder jumps in. So football, baseball, and a whole lot more with Colin in for Golick. We're back in 3 minutes on Mike and Mike.
ESPN Radio Sports.
With us, Mike and Mike, half past the hour. Game 3 NLCS last night goes to the Cardinals in a rain-lengthened affair. There was a more than 3-hour rain delay in the middle, but somewhere along the line, Matt Carpenter hit a 2-run home run. He came in when Carlos Beltran got hurt and promptly took Matt Cain out. So Carpenter's the hero, and the Cardinals have a 3-1 win and a 2-1 series lead. Game 4 is tonight. Coverage 8 Eastern here on ESPN Radio. Game 4, Yankees-Tigers in the ALCS begins 4:07 Eastern time today after they were rained out yesterday. CC Sabathia and Max Scherzer. And as you just heard, our Adam Schefter here on Mike and Mike, Terrell Suggs of the Ravens plans to play this Sunday against Houston. Mike and Mike in our Sports Center is brought to you by Cooper Tires. Buy 4 qualifying Cooper Tires during Take the Money and Ride and get a Visa prepaid card for up to $75 by mail. Visit CooperTireRebates.com for complete forms, terms, and conditions. Card issued by Center State Bank of Florida, North America, pursuant to a license from Visa USA, Inc. Colin Cowherd is in for Golick today. Marcellus Wiley is in our studio. We talk football with you. Again, if you're just joining us, Adam Schefter just jumped in here and told us that Terrell Suggs, just one day after returning to practice after tearing his Achilles in April, is hoping to / planning to play this weekend against Houston. That's where we'll kick off our football conversation. Marcellus, I just want your help with what happened. I've asked everyone we've had on this week about it because I was so infuriated watching the lack of urgency, the lack of organization, the lack of something that happened with Dallas at the end of their game last week against Baltimore. That was a game they could have won 5 different ways, and they managed not to. And then the way they talked about it afterwards is though it was some valiant effort. And Jason Garrett saying, well, we learned a lot out there today. They dominated. They kicked the Ravens' butts up and down the field for 60 minutes and found 5 different ways to lose a winnable game. What is going on with the Cowboys?
Well, if you look at that situation, and we're talking about situational football, you saw the Dallas Cowboys in stark contrast to what you saw with the Atlanta Falcons and how they were able to manage the same amount of time at the end of a ball game. Situational football, you take care of that in practice, but you take care of it in situations where, let's say that the focus may be waning with your ball club, and it takes a extremely disciplined team, and it takes the right type of leadership and coaching to make sure that those situations are respected by all 11 players on the field. It's just like special teams. You don't start off a practice after you do your stretching and your warm-up, and then we get into our contact drills, and then we say special teams. Special teams is usually left for the end of practice. At that time, all the starters more than likely are finished with their work. And at times, that's when you can see that guys are paying attention to other things rather than what's going on in special teams. Of all the times where coach would yell at us at practice, most of the times it was during special teams and substitution periods when he just says, okay, offense on the field, defense on the field, kick return on the field. Where's Wiley? Where's Wiley? It's those situations where coaches have to make sure that they're focusing on every single detail, and more importantly, every single player is honed in on that same situation. And a lot of times we see it translate on the football field in positive ways, the Atlanta Falcons, New England Patriots, and then there are other situations like the Dallas Cowboys where you wonder, okay, how come only two guys had the sense of urgency in that moment, and you have receivers running 30 yards down the field and jogging back? That comes from the fact that that same player wasn't reminded throughout the work week and in that moment of the sense of urgency, having two plays called in that moment. And so it translates. What you do on a practice field always comes up.
It's amazing. Atlanta's been outplayed at home, physically pushed around by Carolina and Oakland, wins both of them.
Yep.
Dallas, in numerous occasions over the last 2 years, has outplayed somebody and lost. New England this past week outplayed Seattle and lost. That's fairly rare with the Patriots. They usually button it up and win those games. But I think about this often. Back when I was like a sports fan, the Cowboys may be the most frustrating team in sports. They're outplaying people. They have real stars, and they can't close things out. And it's amazing. Lack of urgency. Is there any more viewed team in sports than the Dallas Cowboys? How can there be a lack of urgency?
Yeah, well, I've never played for Bill Belichick, never played for Jason Garrett, but I did play for Mike Smith as our defensive coordinator in Jacksonville. And he focuses on the X's and O's and every letter in between. I mean, this guy details. And I know one thing, people say, oh, the Atlanta Falcons are getting lucky, or, how are they winning these close ball games? It's because those details translate in those moments. When you're talking about a 1-point ball game, a 3-point ball game, how do you come back against the Carolina Panthers? That focus on the details is what they have, and I know Mike Smith makes sure they know it.
The more kids study, the better grades they get on tests. I mean, in the end, it really comes down to doing the footwork and the detail work every day at practice.
Mike Marcellus Wiley's in our studio. Earlier, we were asked the question, Marcellus, which is the best 3-3 team in football? Because a third of the league is 3-3. Colin said, without question, the Patriots. He likes them actually still as the best team in the conference. They've lost their 3 games, I think, by a combined total of 4 points. But I've heard others say they think that the Patriots look unusually vulnerable. Which side of that do you fall on? Do they look really good to you when they've just managed to lose a couple of fluky-ish kind of games? Or do they look like they have significant holes to you?
I would side with the fact that they look very good if you look at this team, because they have a running game this year, which they haven't had in the past. You talk about the identity and adjustments they made with Wes Welker. We all know what happened in the beginning of the season versus now. You talk about Aaron Hernandez in and out of the lineup. You talk about all the adjustments and additions they have on defense. They're playing well against the run on defense, but they're giving up big plays up top in the passing game. So all those things need to be ironed out with this team. But if you look at the Patriots, they're one of the teams that you look at and you say they're better than their record. When you look at the Jets, you're like, whoa, I'm surprised they're 3-3 right now. So the same record can inspire different reactions from everyone.
New England's Noah's Ark of the NFL. They have 2 of everything, 2 great tight ends, 2 really good running backs. They have Edelman and Wes Welker. Branch and Brandon Lloyd, veteran receivers. Most teams in this league, not to pick on your Jets, you're just dying for one thing.
Yeah.
Like New England's got, even their backup quarterback, Ryan Mallett, you're like, that's probably the most talented backup.
Exactly.
I think they're really, really loaded. And let's be honest, they've lost at Seattle. They've lost at Baltimore. Come on, those are 2 of the toughest places in the league to play.
And they missed a kick that would have beaten Arizona at the very end uncharacteristically. So, yeah, it could fall either way, and we'll see. That's one of a couple of very important and interesting games on the schedule this week, the Jets going to play the Patriots. Looking through the NFC, a lot of confounding teams. The Philadelphia Eagles go into their bye. They fire their defensive coordinator when it's their offense that's killing them. So I think a lot of people are looking at that, Marcellus, a little bit sideways. What did you make of the whole thing?
The same as everyone else. Why are you firing your defensive coordinator when you were ranked 13th in points allowed, but then you're 31st in scoring offensively? So obviously you have more struggles offensively. The turnovers, obviously, with Mike Vick is an issue with this team. The identity of trying to get Mike Vick going and feeling comfortable and making sure he gets his attempts. But at the same time, LaShawn McCoy needs his attempts. And it's just a lot of things, a lot of moving pieces, a lot of moving variables with this team that they haven't necessarily ironed out. All that said, it's interesting. You try to create a sense of urgency through your words. And when that becomes white noise in the locker room. You have to do it through your actions. And I think this is one of the actions that creates that sense of urgency where every guy is walking around saying, who's the next guy to get the pink slip? Who's the next guy to get cut? Who's the next guy to get demoted? And Andy Reid is hoping that galvanizes his team. It works. I mean, it's a scare tactic that works, so we'll see if it works for this team.
I had a source I trust this week tell me that a deep concern inside the Eagles locker room is that as gifted as Michael Vick is, he's not a leader. And I've met him twice. He literally melts into the corner of the room. He's very quiet. Mm-hmm. First of all, he's 5'11".
Yeah.
He's incredibly quiet. His personality is not that of Peyton Manning, McNabb, guys that walk into the room, Stafford kind of own it. That's part of the problem. Mike has always been very quiet. Very rare you can find a great team where the quarterback wasn't the leader. It was Eli's problem initially because of the strong personalities around him. Shockey and Tiki, they leave, he can take the huddle over. Secondly, when I met Michael Vick, the one thing that always jumped out to me, he's got small hands.
Yeah.
Fumbles a lot. And in the end, I went back and looked at his Virginia Tech numbers. Mike's had a fumbling problem forever, 55 and 6 years in Atlanta. Some of it's just DNA. You know, Mike is small. He takes a lot of shots. Fumbles, smaller hands. I mean, you Flacco or Manning. These are big guys, 6'4", 6'5", Roethlisberger, Cam. I always think with Michael Vick, we're trying to create something that's not there. He's not a big leader personality, and he struggles with fumbles. That's who he is. Not 10 years into anything, you are what you are. A-Rod can't hit in the playoffs. It's been established. He is what he is.
Yeah, but that need to be that leader that walks in the room, Phillip Rivers that walks in the room, you say, that's a man's man, you know. Of course, I think that you can make that conversation happen where those guys turn into Super Bowl champions, but it's not mutually exclusive where you say, okay, now if you're not that type of guy, you can't be successful in this league. What reminds me of that situation is that knowing Michael Vick and knowing the Philadelphia Eagles and all the different changes that they've had over the last couple of years, Deshaun Jackson and his situation in his contract, how when those things become headlines and then you try to move past those points, there's a residual effect. And you're seeing that effect right now where this team is trying to say, what is our course? Because you've seen them very off course so many times in the last couple of years. A super talented team. And you look at this team like the New England Patriots, you could say, okay, they've won some close ball games, but they should be better than their record. Sooner or later, they'll figure that out. And the only way they'll figure that out is that Mike Vick is still the quarterback of this team.
Brought to you by Sears, a proud sponsor of the ESPN Radio Fall Football Tour, live Monday from Chicago. This is Sears. We have to let Marcellus go. He's got SportsCenter and much more to do today. We'll see you a little bit later.
All right, brother.
Mark Mulder on his way in. We shifted back to baseball next. Mike and Mike in the morning, ESPN Radio.
I doth declare that thou have brought over many discounts to thine customers.
Safe driver, multi-car, paid in full. A most fulsome bounty indeed, Lord Jamie.
Thou cometh and we, thy saveth.
What are you doing?
We doth offer so many discounts, we have some to spare.
Oh, you have any of those homeowners discounts? Here we go. Thank you.
Took my shield, my lady.
These are troubling times in the kingdom.
More discounts than we knoweth what to do with. Now that's progressive.
Remember, if you want more Mike and Mike in the morning, check out our new and improved webpage at espnradio.com.
Previously on Mike and Mike in the morning.
And when my body said, I'm not going to do this anymore, I'm through, it was mentally, it was devastating. It was devastating not to be able to perform because the bottom line, the great ones not only do it for themselves and do it, but more importantly, they do it for their team. They stand up for their team and they play for their team. And I always felt it was my responsibility to go out there and play for the guys that I played with, for the coaches, for the equipment guys, for the, you name it, for the trainers, all those guys. That was my responsibility. And I took a lot of pride in that. And I believed that was my calling. And when my body stopped working, when my body just said, forget you, I'm not going to do it. I always tell this story. The last year I was playing, and I was struggling, man. My knee was really bad. And I'll never forget, we're watching film, and it's middle of the season, and I'm trying to make this comeback. And when we had these sweatshirts and everything else, and you couldn't see there was no number, right? It was just we're out there practicing. And I'm watching this guy limp around and just look awful. And I remember sitting in the film room watching, and I'm going, dang, who is that? That's all. And I realized, oh, shoot, that's me. That's me limping around. That's me looking like I'm towing a boat. And at that point in my mind, I was like, I can't play anymore. I cannot play at the level that I've played at my whole career in spite of being injured. I can't do it anymore. And it was devastating. And then you realize I'm more of a hindrance to my team winning than I'm a help. Man, it's one of the worst feelings I've ever had in my entire life. To sit there and say, finally to walk up and say, guys, you know what? You're better off without me.
When it comes to the financial obstacles military families face, we understand. At USAA, we know military life is different. We've been there. That's why every bit of financial advice we offer is geared specifically to current and former military members and their families.
Dad!
Life brings obstacles. USAA brings advice. Call or visit us online. We're ready to help.
Your snoring sounds like a freight train. It's not healthy for you, and it prevents your partner from sleeping at all. You may search for solutions like nose strips, sprays, and other gadgets, but the proven way to eliminate snoring is to widen your airway. That's what dentists do with custom devices, but they cost thousands. Now there's an affordable solution. Introducing Z-Quiet, dentist designed and cleared by the FDA. Z-Quiet gently positions your lower jaw slightly forward to widen the airway and stop your snoring. Z-Quiet is comfortable and easy. It doesn't require boiling, fitting, or sleeping with a closed mouth like other mouthpieces. It's ready to use right out of the box. The soft material and patented flexible hinge provide comfort to stop your snoring the very first night.
So I ordered it, and it worked the first night. The snoring stopped instantly once I started using it.
Amazing for me.
Try Z-Quiet for 30 days for only $9.95. If Z-Quiet doesn't solve your snoring, send it back and never pay a penny more. Stop snoring now. Get Z-Quiet.
On the drive to the national championship, the Gators are out to prove they're the real deal in a tough conference showdown in the swamp.
I have too many question marks surrounding Florida.
This week on BCS Countdown.
Now to unveil the surprise.
Catch the exclusive reveal of the new BCS standings as our experts break down their top contenders in the national title race.
They're going to have a chance to prove whether or not they're a legitimate team.
BCS Countdown, Sunday at 8:30 on ESPN.
The news of the day with our buddy Joaquin. We're back in better than ever. Colin is in for Golic today, and joining us now, formerly of the law firm Hudson, Mulder and Zito, is our buddy Mark Mulder. Is getting in with his Subway Fresh Take. It's the first time I think we've had you in studio, or the first time in a while, but every time I see Mark, I always tell him that back in the days, in the Moneyball days, even though you were conveniently left out of the film for reasons known only to them in Hollywood, no one ever referred to the Oakland A's without referring to the three of you always together by name, Hudson, Mulder, and Zito. And I've always found that amazing that somehow that didn't wind up making it into the movie.
And what I find ironic is that it always went Hudson, Mulder, Zito. And they always used to ask us and say, well, what's with the order? Why? I said, well, that's just the order that we got called up in, so maybe that's why it's stuck.
Yeah, it's like that Petco show. What's that store that it always goes, I'm bringing up something, nobody's looking at me. Greenie, you're lost.
I am a tad, I'm not going to lie to you, I don't know exactly where you're going with this.
There's a store with three guys' names, and let's just let it go.
I agree with you. I think in everyone's best interest, let's move on. Let's start in the National League. Give me a sense. You got a 3.5-hour rain delay. You're a pitcher. What are we doing?
You're just hanging out. You're not doing much. I mean, after that amount of time, if you're still in the game, you're not going back in. So there's no point in trying to do anything to keep yourself warm, keep yourself hot. It's just a lot of sitting around, and then the minute somebody comes in, one of the coaches will say, hey, taking the tarp off, we got about, we have a start time of, say, like last night, 9:05, whatever it might be. Then you start to prepare yourself to get ready. But other than that, you're just hanging out.
How about guys like Sabathia and Scherzer, who were expecting to go yesterday? Now they go to today. I doubt that they ever – I mean, they knew they weren't going to have to pitch yesterday.
Yeah.
Does that affect them in any way?
No, not really, because you never went out and did anything. You might have gone out to play catch. You might have started to stretch. That's kind of pointless. It doesn't make much of a difference. You've done all your preparation. There's still a routine that they'll go through today. It's not like they're going to skip anything or do anything different because they've already prepped themselves for this game. So they're ready to go, but they're still going to maybe watch that video over again just to refresh themselves, go over the certain numbers or something that they want to look at, and then you go through your routine.
Being in a lot of clubhouses, you know that even one bad personality can be a buzzkill. I talked to Jimmy Rollins of the Phillies years ago, and I won't name the player, but he said it was a great locker room except one dude. And he said we try to keep him away from some of the other guys. Is it possible, as I watch the Yankees, again, almost as if it's contagious, nobody can hit, is A-Rod just a bad locker room dude?
I've never played with him, so it's hard for me to give you that answer, and I haven't necessarily had any buddies who have played with him say that he is. A lot of the guys liked him. So, it's just a bad situation is what it is, more than I think that he's just a bad person. I mean, you name it, what hasn't happened to this guy? Here you are, the biggest games of the year, and now he's not playing. So, I mean, of course, this is what dominates this story, and it's unfortunate because it takes so much away from what these guys out on the field are trying to do because it does become a distraction.
Yeah. If you're pitching against them right now, whereas I think that they have been for the last decade or so considered to be the toughest team to pitch against because there isn't an easy out. They have the circular lineup. Right now, if you're going in to pitch against them, where are you scared?
You're not. That's just it. I mean, I watch these. I laugh when I watch some of these games because these pitchers are making it look so easy. It is not easy. Again, I don't care what lineup it is. It's not easy to pitch in playoff games, much less what these pitchers are doing against this Yankee lineup. Now, you have to give some credit to the Detroit pitchers. I mean, they're making some great pitches, but even when they make the mistakes, the Yankees aren't hitting a single one of them. The other day, I think Granderson had an at-bat. It was 3-1, and he pops it straight up on a ball right down the middle, looking for that short porch in right field. I mean, that's where he's made his money, and it's crazy how bad they look.
Mark Teixeira said Verlander toyed with us. Alex Avila said Verlander wasn't really on his stuff. I mean, I like Doug Fister, but he's not Sandy Koufax. I wonder, you're down 3-0, nobody's hitting, there's the A-Rod controversy. I mean, you've been in these clubhouses where they're either energized or dead. I mean, the chances, your gut feeling on that clubhouse in New York right now.
Oh, they're dead.
They're dead.
They don't want to be there.
They don't want to be there.
I wouldn't think so. That's not that when they show clips of them in the dugout, they're kind of just sitting there. You look at some of the other ones where they were down, whether it's San Fran, St. Louis. You're seeing. I mean, St. Louis was down 6-0 in Nationals. We talked about that, and they're rah-rah. Not that
on the steps.
Yes, they're on the top steps, going, "Come on, guys, let's chip away at this." You look in that Yankee dugout, and they're just sitting there going, I mean, can we get this over with? That's what it seems like.
By the way, weren't we saying this a couple years ago? This is like the third time where we've literally brought up the story. Yeah, that team wants the season to end. That's remarkable.
Mike and Mike, Colin Cowherd's in for Golo today. Mark Mulder is in our studio. Part of it, at least with right now, is that you have guys sitting on the bench who aren't accustomed to sitting on the bench. If you're Alex Rodriguez, if you're Nick Swisher, you're accustomed to at least being in the game so that you're thinking you can do something about it. And these guys are just sitting there and watching, and I can't fathom just what that has to be like for guys who are day in, day out. That's why I've never been in favor of juggling around the lineup. Yeah. I understand sometimes you have to make a change. But at the end of the day, your team is what your team is. If you're going to go down with your guys. Go down with the ship, and they have not done that.
And I agree with that because you have these guys out there, they're playing 158. Well, when they're healthy, Swisher's been out there almost the whole season. Granderson's been out there, except for a few injuries here and there. But, these are the guys you live and die with, like you said. And they're not used to sitting there. They might sit for a day with then an off day the next day, so that gives them a 2-day break. But they want to be back in there, and you need them back in there. I know they're struggling, but this is the playoffs. Any one pitch can get any one of those guys hot, and all of a sudden it turns it around.
Be interesting to watch in the National League. Do you see an advantage right now? Lincecum coming back. Your old buddy Barry Zito is going to pitch a game. The San Francisco Giants, do you see them coming back here with the pitching they've had to go to now in the next 2 nights?
Lincecum has He's turned things around a little bit, you see, and not with his stuff. It's with his head, with his confidence. You see him with a little bit of a swagger out there. I think the game with him and Wainwright is going to be pitched very well. I think it's going to be a close game. In the end, I might be biased, but I still do see the St. Louis Cardinals winning this.
Our new theory, I think you've joined in. Always take the Cardinals.
Yeah.
From now on, always in every game.
I've said until I see someone beat them, I'm not going to believe that it's going to happen because no one ever manages to do it. You'll see Mark Mulder on baseball tonight and all over SportsCenter as we have a doubleheader again today in the LCS. It's good to see you in here, Mark. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks for stopping by. Chris Mortensen is on the way. We'll go inside the huddle. Collins in for Golick. It's a very busy Thursday with Mike and Mike. We'll be right back. Remember, if you want more Mike and Mike in the Morning, check out our new and improved webpage at espnradio.com.
We'll be back with Mike and Mike soon, but first, there's this.
Did Nike just finish off Lance Armstrong?
Nike is very loyal to its athletes. It stood by Kobe. It stood by Ben Roethlisberger. Only 2 times has Nike ever distanced itself from one of its athletes. One happens to be Michael Vick, who they later re-signed, and now the other is Lance Armstrong, and he's a disgrace. I mean, he is one of the biggest raging frauds in the history of American sports. But that's not all he is. He's also someone who somehow made cycling matter and raised millions of dollars for cancer on a bicycle, of all things. Now, a lot of people today are crushing Lance Armstrong, and he was a cheater. He was a fraud, clearly. But that's not all he was. He's both things. He's a raging American sports fraud who also did very good things with his power while he was cheating.
So is there a second act for Lance Armstrong?
What's the second act? What can he do? What's next? There's nothing next. You resign from the foundation, from the head of the Live Strong Foundation. What's the next act? It's over. This is the punctuation.
Does this video make you question how hard it really is to kick a 63-yard field goal?
No, there's nothing that you can show me that's going to say this isn't hard. This is hard. What are you going to show me? Let me see. See, on the surface, I suppose that's mildly impressive. Mildly impressive. But let's think about this here. There's no pass rush, no snap. There's a tee. There is a holder who looks like George the Animal Steele. And the kicker is coming from about 400 yards back, fired out of a cannon of some sort that you don't see in the picture. No, get out of here. 63-yard field goals are hard. I do enjoy watching that holder, though.
Could you do that?
Oh, I couldn't do that. I could be the holder. I could be the holder in that photo. I could have been the holder, yeah.
I want to be the holder. You're the kicker.
Welcome to our commercial.
So today we're going to discuss how to create the ultimate party playlist. There's no better tool for the job than the Rhapsody app. Start by searching for the songs you know you want and add them to your party playlist like this. You can even take requests or have your friends add to it as you go.
Ooh, Nirvana, Lil Wayne, and Sugarland. With Rhapsody, you don't pay per song, so you can add as many songs as you want. My party playlist has 2,786 songs.
Rhapsody. All the music you want, just $10 a month.
People really love Snapshot from Progressive. But don't just listen to me. Listen to these happy Progressive customers.
I plugged in Snapshot, and 30 days later, I was saving big on car insurance.
With Snapshot, I knew what I could save before I switched to Progressive.
The better I drive, the more I save.
I wish our company had something this cool. You're not filming this, are you?
Aw, camera shy. Snapshot from Progressive.
Test drive Snapshot before you switch. Visit Progressive.com today.
ESPN Radio Sports.
With us, Mike and Mike, and isn't it always the story? Carlos Beltran is genuinely one of the best postseason hitters of all time. He gets hurt last night. Out he comes. In goes Matt Carpenter for the St. Louis Cardinals, and promptly he does this.
Swing and a drive. Well hit right field. On its way. Out of here. Over the bullpen and gone. He crushed it. Matt Carpenter off the bench. And a 2-run blast. 2-1 St. Louis. Wow.
Wow, indeed. They'd go on to win it 3-1 in a night that they were delayed over 200 minutes by rain. I just saw a number that they were actually delayed more last night in their game than the San Francisco Giants were all season long combined. in rain delays. They were only delayed 188 minutes during their entire season. One way or another, the Giants down 2-1 in the series now. Cardinals will look to take Game 4 at home tonight, 8 Eastern for the coverage here on ESPN Radio. Game 4 in the American League also postponed by weather yesterday. They'll play that today, 4:07 Eastern Time here on ESPN Radio. Yesterday's pitchers will go today, CC Sabathia and Max Scherzer. What it does mean is if the Yankees somehow manage to extend this to a 7th game, Sabathia in all likelihood will not be available. He'd be pitching on 2 days rest, so they'd only have him once in 7 games. Obviously, right now, they would take a Game 7 anyway. They could get one. Football, Jonathan Vilma practices for the first time with the Saints yesterday. Coach Aaron Cromer says the health and knowing the playbook will determine whether Vilma is ready to come off the PUP list and play for New Orleans. Ray Lewis, meanwhile, goes on the new designated to return IR. That means that he could theoretically come back in 6 weeks, this despite him undergoing surgery for a torn triceps. I don't think anyone is expecting that he'll be back this year. Basketball, tough news in Minnesota. Kevin Love has broken his hand. Broke a bone in the shooting hand during a warning workout yesterday. He's out 6 to 8 weeks. This is a team that's already without Ricky Rubio. College football, South Carolina running back Marcus Lattimore bruised hip. He's questionable for the showdown game with Florida this weekend. Notre Dame quarterback Everett Golson with a concussion has been cleared to practice. And that is SportsCenter. It's brought to you by Quaker State. For people who want to get the most miles out of their engine, it's a good thing there's a motor oil like Quaker State Defy. It stops up to 98%. A future engine wear based on the industry standard Sequence 4A wear test. Learn more at QuakerState.com. Oh, yeah, back and better than ever. Mike and Mike in the morning on ESPN Radio, live on TV on ESPN2. We are presented by Progressive Insurance, and it's a pleasure for us this morning to be joined by our friend Colin Cowherd. Good enough to come in here early in the morning and fill in for Golic. Golic has got still the voice. Hopefully the big fella will be able to speak tomorrow. He was raspy beyond recognition yesterday. And so Colin is here from the Herd here on ESPN Radio, of course, and Sports Nation, and a whole lot more. A very interesting day with, once again, another day where Alex Rodriguez, who is the ultimate lightning rod in sports, continues to be a big part of the story, now with all the speculation that the Yankees are going to trade him. And I think one of the interesting sidebars in this, Colin, I asked Costas this when he was on last week. I said, can you ever recall a player who was a lightning rod in the way that this guy is, for whom all of the attention gravitates to him in the way it does here? And he brought up a few examples like Barry Bonds. And that got me to thinking, Alex Rodriguez has his own steroid thing. That doesn't even get into the conversation. When you think about A-Rod right now and all the different factors that swirl around whether you like him or you don't, and the many distractions, or at least the many storylines that he creates, it's almost as though the performance-enhancing drug part of it is just forgotten. I don't even think people think of that when they think about A-Rod.
And Donald Trump said a couple days ago on 98.7 Michael Kay show, he went out and said, I would try to sue him to get that money back and get rid of him, because when you signed the deal, you had no idea he was using PEDs. So really, he has lied to you as an organization.
I have that here.
I want to get back to A-Rod. You said you try to terminate the contract, but it's tough with the Players Association. If you
I disagree. It's called misrepresentation. He never told the Yankees that he was all juiced up. That all came out after he signed his contract.
But you know the Players Association is a tough nut to crack.
I don't care about the Players Association. If somebody misrepresents and they're paying him $30 million a year, and every time he gets up, I mean, look, I know a lot about baseball. I was actually a very good baseball player.
He got into his baseball playing past there, which I think was probably, in the scheme of this conversation, probably a mistake, because his knowledge of baseball is irrelevant. I have wondered for a long time. I remember years ago when Jason Giambi was at the center of all this, speculating, would the Yankees try and use that as a way to get out from under his contract, which at the time we believed they wanted to do. They never tried. I wonder if they could. They're about to, if everyone is right, if Buster Olney and Timmy Kirkjian and all of our baseball guys are right, then the Yankees this offseason are going to attempt to trade Alex Rodriguez and probably eat up to $100 million, essentially pay $100 million to have this guy go away. Do you think that there is a reasonable chance that they could or would try to do what Trump is saying and suggest the deal was fraudulent because we didn't know that you were on steroids previously, which you've now acknowledged you have, that inflated your numbers, it changed the amount of money that you would have been worth, and they would try and go after some of the money?
Well, we're seeing NFL players now go after the league based on lack of knowledge. Why not? the Steinbrenners we now know are not inclined to spend $200 million annually. They want to get down to $185 million. That's despite revenues with the YES Network and the ancillary revenue streams being up for the Yankees. So this is a bottom line Yankee ownership group right now. I think it's possible. We live in a very litigious society. A-Rod has been an absolute flop. I will say this to defend him, though, Mike. And just like presidents today have to deal with whoever's elected, global terrorism. You know, guys didn't deal with that in the 50s. Baseball players deal now with social media, major networks, the pursuit of their lives, private lives. To defend A-Rod a little, he has grown up in the wrong era. The great-looking kid who's kind of insecure. It's Mickey Mantle didn't have to deal with this, and he had all sorts of personal picadillos. But in the end, I find A-Rod to almost be a corrosive personality in crisis. There's like Kobe said this week, he's almost insecure, and it drains people around him. And I find him, I think the Yankees are better without him. Now, that sounds ridiculous to say. I almost think that clubhouse is better without him.
It doesn't sound ridiculous to say when you look at his numbers. I mean, it's ridiculous to say when he was what he was. But the reality is he isn't that anymore. He hasn't been that for a while offensively. All those years of 30 home runs and 100 RBIs are over, and I don't know if they're ever coming back.
One extra base hit since mid-September. One extra base hit.
Yeah.
And you have other issues, by the way. In that Austin Jackson-Granderson deal, is Austin Jackson now better than Granderson? I mean, there's a lot of issues here.
What did he had? 42 home runs this year.
Man,
I mean,
big strikeout guy.
He is a little feast or famine. I don't know. Here's the thing. There was a famous book, and it was made into a movie called The Picture of Dorian Gray, where a guy stayed young and youthful and perfect forever, and then there was a painting of him that grew all the warts and everything, and one day you open up the door and you see the picture and you see it for what it really is. That's sort of what's happening to the Yankees right now. It's all hitting them at once. All these years and years of sweeping things under the rug and robbing from Peter to pay Paul, it's all hitting them in one horrible week. But that's all it is a week. What you can't forget is that this is a team that won more games than any other team in the American League this year.
It was hard. I mean, injuries. They were swept in their first series. Pitching issues. Let's be honest. The Red Sox were a disaster. The Angels underperformed. What if the Angels next year perform to the level we expect? What if the Red Sox aren't a disaster? The Yankees got some breaks this year. Chicago, the White Sox led their division. A lot of teams we thought would be good weren't good.
Yeah.
Those teams could very easily improve next year, and the Yankees erode more.
They could, but we could only deal with what has happened. They won 95 games. I mean, and we saw it. It actually happened. And they were capable of more than they're doing now. There is a Shakespearean element to what's happening now because it has all collapsed so suddenly and almost inexplicably. Yes, do a lot of these guys have a history of not producing in the postseason? Yes, Nick Swisher and Alex Rodriguez in particular. At the end of the season, Robinson Cano was the hottest hitter that ever walked the face of planet Earth. He was like Bonds in whatever year it was, 2004 or 3 or whatever year it was, the Bonds, no one could get him out. I think Robinson Cano was hitting 600 and something for the last 2 weeks of the season. They took 2 days off now. He can't hit anything. He was like 0 for 30. These things, it is inexplicable.
Cano is shocking. But take Cano out of it. Aaron Boone said this. Aaron Boone predicted this before the season. He said he had a weird feeling that it would all come crashing down, that outside of Cano and maybe Granderson, and this was before the Ichiro deal, but that he really looked at the Yankee lineup and he kind of felt and predicted, this was Aaron Boone, former Yankee great, that they would kind of fall apart quickly, and it's just happened in front of our eyes.
For more on A-Rod and the Yankees, you can go to ESPNNewYork.com. We're presented by Progressive Insurance. Just plug Snapshot into your car. Your good driving could save you up to 30% with Progressive. Visit progressive.com/snapshot. Colin is in for Golick today. Chris Mortensen takes us inside the huddle where earlier this morning we had some fairly startling breaking news out of the NFL. Guess who may be coming back much sooner than expected? We'll talk about that right after this word from Stamps.com. Now, Mike and I have been telling you about Stamps.com for quite some time, and so we get a lot of questions. People will ask us about Stamps.com. These are some of the commonly asked questions. First off, is it just for stamps? The answer is no. With Stamps.com, you can get postage for any letter, any package, and any class of mail. The next question is, do you need to buy any special equipment? The answer is no. You use what you already have. You only need a computer and a printer. It's that simple. And with our offer, Stamps.com will send you a digital scale so you can weigh all your letters and packages. And then the big question is, after I get postage from Stamps.com, don't I still have to go to the post office? And the answer is no. You just hand it to your mailman, or you can sign up for free pickup, and it's easy to install on your computer. Stamps.com will genuinely make your life and your small business much more easy to use. And you'll save a bunch of money if you use our name. Type in Mike for a no-risk trial. $110 bonus includes a digital scale and up to $55 in free postage. Just go to Stamps.com, click on the radio microphone, and type in Mike. That's Stamps.com, and enter Mike. Chris Mortensen next. Mike and Mike in the morning, ESPN Radio.
SVP and Russillo coming up Thursday, 1 Eastern here on ESPN News. A visit with Mike Krzyzewski, winningest coach in college basketball, fresh off yet another gold medal. At this point, what's left to do? And does he still feel the joy like he did back in the day at Army? A visit with Michael Wilbon on all things sports. And Chad Millman stops by. New ESPN The Magazine issue is out. NBA is the focus. And as always, we'll have some fun crunching the numbers looking ahead to the NFL weekend. Hope to see you right here on Thursday at 1 on SVP and Russillo.
The time has come. The time has come. The time has come.
It's a physical game. Oh, me, oh, my. A monster jam by Blake Griffin.
I love Lexington. Hey, I don't believe. Forget about it. Go Gators.
Two non-believers on the set.
Everyone likes to be recognized for doing the right thing. That's why at Travelers, we reward good behavior by offering valuable discounts and features. Call 1-855-825-0975 or visit goodbehavior.com to see how you could save money. Call today and ask about our multi-policy discount.
Good job.
And you could see savings up to 20% on car insurance for insuring your auto, home, and more with Travelers. For a quote or to find a local agent, call 1-855-825-0975 today.
This is impressive, Coach. It's the 12th man at their very best.
Hey, what's with the yelling around here?
It's midnight yell practice, Coach. It's a Texas A&M tradition.
At this hour?
Hence the name Midnight Yell.
Crazy.
ESPN College Game Day, built by the Home Depot, Saturday.
Stupid, slow, dirty PC.
You know, you really should clean it up and speed it up at mycleanpc.com.
Is your computer running slow? What if you could fix it while you were online? Now you can. Just go to mycleanpc.com for your free diagnosis today. Then just activate the mycleanpc.com software to fix it in minutes. And computer specialists are available while you're online. Get rid of pop-ups and junk files. Boost your PC startup time. Even prevent annoying errors, screen freezes, and crashes.
The best thing about mycleanpc.com was it had a free diagnosis.
You know immediately what the problem is, and the problem is solved right then and there.
My computer is 100% faster. My Clean PC works.
Download your free diagnosis today at mycleanpc.com. That's mycleanpc.com.
On ESPN Radio, we're making sure you hear every minute of it. That's WCBS, the play-by-play courtesy. Colin Cowherd is in for Golic today. We turn our attention to some football, and we'll go inside the huddle with Chris Mortensen, who joins us every week and anytime we need him. And Mort, let's start with the significant news we had Shefty on talking about earlier. You know, when Terrell Suggs first tore his Achilles in April, I think there was a feeling he wouldn't play at all this year. He kept swearing that he would. Comes back to practice this week, and now the word is he's going to try and go out and play this Sunday against Houston. What are you hearing?
Yes, I will get to that in a second, but to complete Colin's bizarre sentence earlier, Pep Boys, Manny, Mo, and Jack.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bringing it full circle. Thank you.
Now we'll get back to football and Greeny's question. Yes, listen, Suggs has targeted to this date to play in, and I think where Adam has taken it further is that Suggs expects to play in this game, and that's the issue. I mean, he's inviting family and friends to this game, and certainly when you're talking about an Achilles injury, yesterday was his first day of practice, limited. Now, he lit up the locker room. He energized the locker room even before they hit the practice field. He was playing the movie Goodfellas from his locker somehow. But, you know, if he can go out and play this week, I think it would be for limited reps. Maybe it's inspirational, but it would seem to be a dangerous thing to do. 30 years old, defending, you know, the Defensive Player of the Year last year, and considering all the injuries you've had and devastating injuries, this is a team, the Ravens, that is 5-1, and you know you expect them to be in the playoff hunt down the stretch. Do you risk Terrell Suggs? And the common sense says no, but Terrell Suggs is obviously saying yes. They've lost Ladarius Webb, Ray Lewis. Ed Reed now says he has a torn labrum, by the way.
Oh boy, great.
In his shoulder.
Oh boy.
So do you want to risk Terrell Suggs this early in the season, knowing you're going to be in it later? And that's certainly Jim Harbaugh said it'll be a day-to-day thing, but Suggsy is apparently planning on it.
Seahawks Niners tonight, and on sort of a similar West Coast vein, I mentioned earlier, Greeny brought up if Dallas, or if an NFL team was looking for a coach, who would it be? And I said Nick Saban, because I don't think he was an NFL failure. I just don't think the team doctors let him have Drew Brees. Instead, he got Dante Culpepper, or his history in the NFL would be different. You are talking, I heard something the other day about Chip Kelly at Oregon in the NFL. Further that story, if you could.
Well, first of all, Chip Kelly was offered the Tampa Bay Buccaneers job. He was their number one guy, and eventually it went to Greg Schiano, from Rutgers. So this whole concept, and tonight as we have the Seahawks and 49ers, a reminder that Pete Carroll and Jim Harbaugh both came from what was then the Pac-10, even though Pete had a lot of NFL experience and Harbaugh played in the NFL. But Chip Kelly is on the short list of a lot of general managers, head coaching candidate slots. And of course that's it for the end of the year talk. For Chip Kelly, it's a delicate thing because of recruiting. But everybody I know in the NFL who has talked to Chip Kelly say, this guy, he's got it. And he's got it not just from a collegiate mentality, but he's got it from a professional football mentality. And when Bill Belichick starts calling you up and asking you about certain things you do, the way you do things, and he utilizes them as Belichick has this year, Chip Kelly is a name to remember when you're talking about hot coaching candidates for the NFL at the end of the year.
He would be a name to remember also when you're selecting a fantasy quarterback for next year, because whatever team he goes to is going to throw 100 passes in a game. Improving your fantasy team is brought to you by Lowe's. Visit ESPNradio.com for a chance to win a trip for 4 to next year's ESPN Fantasy Football Draft Party and Mike and Mike's Fantasy Team Builders Sweepstakes. Lowe's never stop improving. Colin's in for Golic today. Chris Mortensen's with us on Mike and Mike in the morning. Mort, a couple of really big games on the schedule this week, including Giants-Redskins. So the first time that RG3 sees this Giant defense, which can usually be a little chatty, and they are again this week.
Yeah, and now you have Jason Pierre-Paul. It was pretty good, by the way.
Yeah, he's good.
Basically telling Robert Griffin III, don't be running my way. Now, and they've noted, the Giants have, that they have experience against playing these type of quarterbacks. And you say, what type? Well, the type guys who are really fast, mobile, run that option play at once in a while. Michael Vick, Cam Newton, even Tony Romo athletically. Last week they sacked Colin Kaepernick from the 49ers twice. What they've had this week happen is Darrell Jernigan, who is a 4.3, 40 guy when he was at Troy, played high school quarterback. He's basically playing RG3 in the scout teams. But let's remember, the Redskins beat the Giants twice last year with what some would say RG3 and out, Rex Grossman.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would say beware of the Redskins because Mike Shanahan is coaching this team. And so I think that the Redskins pose a threat to them, and I'm not sure you can ever simulate the type of speed that RG3 has.
That took me half a second to get. RG3 and out.
Listen, he brought his riders today. He's got all the good stuff. Andy Reid on a bye week. I'm a huge fan of Andy Reid. What is it like to be Andy Reid these days?
Well, it's not great. And listen, Andy's in charge of all things as it pertains to football operations with the Eagles. But listen, this week, excruciating. Coming off another tough loss, certainly, having to fire one of your best friends, not just one of your best coaches, and Juan Castillo, painful. And then, as it turns out, it is expected that tomorrow, the investigation into his son Garrett's death in training camp, the cause of death is supposed to be publicly revealed. Now, the family, Andy's family, and Andy have already acknowledged that this is drug-related with his son, who was 29 at the time of his death. But it's just, it's just one of those things where it just keeps coming for Andy. He's a strong man, and there's plenty of time left in the season, but it's not an easy situation for Andy Reid, certainly.
Certainly not. No, all of that is horrible, and obviously the issue with his son is totally separate from the football part of it. As far as the football part of it, someone asked us a question earlier this morning. I'll ask it to you. Are Reid and Vic inextricably tied to each other, meaning if this season goes down the drain, are they both gone next year?
I think so. Listen, Jeffrey Lurie, after the season, and that's the owner of the Eagles, basically put Andy Reid on notice with the media, and he reiterated that in training camp, which was shortly after Garrett Reid's death, if you remembered, based off some commentary that was made, and wanted to make sure people understand that Andy does not have a lifetime contract. So if they don't make the playoffs, I think both guys are gone. And I agree with you, by the way. Andy will be unemployed about 45 minutes.
I mean, he's just a great coach.
He is. Sometimes, and Mort, thank you very much. Chris Mortensen on the Subway Fresh Take Hotline. Mort always there when we need him. I agree with you that he's been an excellent coach, but I also think that there were times, it was Chuck Daly who was the first I remember saying this, and he was a great coach. He said, after about 10 years, they've heard everything you have to say.
Yes.
Everything has a shelf life. And, Jeff Fisher's time, and he was a good coach. Time for a new start. It might be best for everybody for Andy to get a new start somewhere else.
I heard somebody I respect say about Nick Saban, he's better in college because he wears them out and then they graduate. That guys in the NFL don't graduate. Nick wears people out. And same with Calipari. He is tough. He can bark. Calipari's good for about 3 years. NBA players, they just don't want to listen to him. Pat Riley could be tough on guys. He had those legendary 3-hour practices.
Yeah. I think Riley was a little like that. I think there was a little of that in Parcells, a little bit of that in those kinds of coaches. It probably only works so long as you are winning in a big way. And we'll see. If a guy like Nick Saban, that's an intriguing possibility, and Chip Kelly coming into the NFL is an intriguing possibility.
They play tonight, by the way. If you want to see what Chip Kelly would bring to the NFL, Oregon at Arizona State tonight. You'll see that no-huddle offense that Bill Belichick asked for tape and teach me how you do that.
You'll see it tonight, actually, on ESPN. Two really interesting football games tonight. ESPN has Oregon, Arizona State. That's at 9 Eastern. And, of course, the NFL Network has the NFL game, which is San Francisco and Seattle, a surprisingly important NFC West game. Earlier this morning, Colin made a prediction that got a lot of people's eyebrows raised. I'll ask him about it in 3 minutes on Mike and Mike. With us, Mike and Mike, half past the hour. Cardinals beat the Giants 3-1 in Game 3 of the NLCS yesterday. Take a 2-1 series lead, a game that featured a rain delay of more than 3 hours in the middle. Matt Carpenter, the surprising hero, comes off the bench after Carlos Beltran got hurt, hits a 2-run homer. So the Cardinals are up 2-1 in the series. They'll play Game 4 tonight, 8 Eastern on ESPN Radio. Game 4 of the American League Championship Series yesterday postponed by rain, so they'll play it this afternoon. 4:07 here on ESPN Radio. CC Sabathia and Max Scherzer will do the pitching. Basketball, bad news, Minnesota. Kevin Love breaks his hand in practice. He's out 6 to 8 weeks. Mike and Sports Center brought to you by CIT Growthpertise. It's the expertise from CIT that helps companies grow. If you're a small or middle market business, CIT has the lending, leasing, and advisory services you need. Visit CIT.com to learn how CIT can help your business grow. Colin Cowherd is in for Golic today. The big fella's voice still on the mend. Colin, nice enough to come in and work with me today. You know him, of course, from The Herd, follows us every day here on ESPN Radio, and, of course, from Sports Nation as well. And I know that you love college football. It is your passion, and I hear you talk about it a lot. And you said something earlier this morning that I know if the fella who usually sits in that chair was here, it wouldn't have taken this long to follow up on it. But we've been busy with other things, so let's get back to it now. There are a few undefeated teams at the top. I had high hopes, parenthetically, for South Carolina.
Yeah.
I thought this was
very
really
good
their
team.
year.
Very good team.
Well, they wound up having to play all their tough games on the road.
There's no question.
And it's just how these things kind of get scheduled. So they wind up going in and losing last week at LSU. Now they got to go to Florida. And, you know, who knows? They could be the second best team in the country, and they're going to wind up with 2 or 3 losses.
LSU won a national title with 2 losses a few years ago.
It could happen, but it seems unlikely to happen this year because I don't see Oregon. I don't know that Oregon will lose a game. And Kansas State is still there in what might be a slightly down Big 12.
I think they'll lose a game, yeah.
And then there's Notre Dame, which, of course, because of Golic's connections there and everything else, is of particular interest here. And I've been trying to figure out in my mind if there's any way in the world that Notre Dame goes to Oklahoma and wins, goes to USC and wins, runs the table, and somehow does not wind up in the championship game. I don't care what else happened. I have to believe that somehow a way would be figured out that the Irish would get in there. And you immediately said to me, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
They're not going to win those games.
No, they're not.
You don't think they go in there and beat Oklahoma?
Absolutely not.
Why not?
Well, okay, let me just do this. I am seen sometimes as an anti-Notre Dame guy, and I always say this. If I give an opinion on anything and it's right, I'm not anti, I'm accurate. Mm-hmm. If you were a food critic and I owned restaurants and you had ripped 6 of my restaurants, yet they'd all closed, you're not anti my restaurants. My restaurants stink.
Right.
I haven't been anti-Notre Dame for 10 years. They've lost 9 of 10 to USC, 7 by blowouts. They're not elite. They were clobbered by LSU. They don't have the speed yet. So first of all, there's 119 college football programs. 75 are garbage. There's about 35 that can play. So your record doesn't indicate how good you are. Notre Dame this year has squeaked by atrocious Big Ten teams. Oregon is dismantling programs. I mean, you know, LSU is playing a much tougher schedule. Notre Dame is beating up on bad teams and narrowly winning. And they're playing games at home.
Was Stanford bad?
Stanford, not bad, eroding as the season progresses. Some teams get better. They're getting worse. They had them at home. Michigan State's bad. Michigan is much worse than we thought. Notre Dame is very well coached. That is inarguable. Assistants and head coach. They are very good in the box defensively in the front 7. Not LSU, Bama good, but really good. Okay, offensively, they have 2 or 3 running backs I really like. So let's establish the coaches know what they are, but the coaches also know what they're not. They can't throw the football. They would start Tommy Reese, who can, but they don't love their offensive line, or they'd start him. So instead, they start a freshman often because he is good on his feet. So this is a team that really hasn't even figured out quarterback. Never been a great college football team who can't figure out the quarterback halfway through the season. Secondly, they have real issues in the back end which have not been exposed because Denard Robinson at Michigan can't throw, and Michigan State as a program can't throw. So they're going to face Oklahoma, who can with a senior quarterback, USC that can with 2 All-American receivers, All-American tight end, All-American quarterback. They haven't faced the teams which will expose their weakness. I'm not saying Oklahoma, USC are great, but what they do well is the weakness of Notre Dame. And in college football, where of the 119 programs, 75 are mostly mediocre to garbage. They haven't been tested yet. So don't take their undefeated record and say they're great. They're a good team running the ball, and they're a good team in the box. But you can't be a great team. I mean, Alabama gets all this love for their defense. The truth is A.J. McCarron's an excellent quarterback, really high end. NFL, maybe first, second rounder. It's not just Alabama's defense. It's that he is tremendous, massively underplayed. So I'm not anti-Notre Dame. I said before the season they'd win 8. If they'd win 9, Brian Kelly deserved a contract extension. Michigan's far worse than we thought, and so was Michigan State. It looks like they'll win 10, and I still believe Brian Kelly's done a remarkable job because he knows deep down they are still a year away. This Notre Dame team athletically is a year away from solving their defensive secondary issues, some offensive line issues, and solidifying their quarterback spot.
I just wrote down their 6 wins. I want to make sure they beat Navy, Michigan State, Purdue, Michigan, Stanford, and Miami. Not in that order, but those are the 6 games that they've won.
Stanford's the best of those, and they're about 28th in the country. They've had some injuries, and they were on the road, and they're kind of, like I said, they're getting worse. Some teams get better, some teams get worse.
Michigan and Michigan State not having the years that many people projected for the two of them. Michigan began as a top 10 team. Michigan State people had high hopes for. The Big Ten in general has been down a little bit this year. So, and then there's Oklahoma, who they had their bad loss. They just went out and thrashed Texas. Are they that good?
Well, Oklahoma is a team that was very young at wide receiver. They got the Penn State transfer. Oklahoma was a team I felt would get better as the season progresses. The Big 12 this year is pretty interesting. A lot of good offenses. I don't know if Oklahoma's great, but they're really starting last couple of weeks to develop the passing game. They've solved their secondary issues. They were terrible in the back end last year. Oklahoma's not a great matchup for Notre Dame. What they do well, Notre Dame could really struggle with.
Be interesting. I thought what they did tomorrow was what they did to Texas over the weekend was interesting. Texas is its own interesting story because I'm reading a lot more discontent amongst the folks down there with the very highly paid Mac Brown, whose team suddenly, since Colt McCoy walked off campus, doesn't look all that good.
They're 3 or 4 years removed from a national title. He's won 74% of their games. They're 4-2. They're incredibly young. He does not own Texas recruiting like he did 5 years ago. He lost Will Muschamp. They looked unprepared against Oklahoma. I wouldn't bail on Mac yet.
How good is Geno Smith?
He's really good. You know what I love about Geno? Geno likes to throw. He just wants to sit in the pocket and throw darts. What I always loved about RG3 is people compared him to Mike Vick. He's not even the same human being. They're just different guys. I mean, RG3 walks into a room. He's got a big personality. RG3 likes to throw the ball. He likes to read a defense. He's challenged by it. Of the Redskins' 12 first and goals, 11 touchdowns. And that's a guy who's really getting the game down.
He's great.
He's really fantastic, and he's a really, really good above the shoulders, really bright kid who picks stuff up. And they're kind of letting him run his college offense. They kind of haven't quite figured out what to do. They're kind of letting him do it. That tells you how much they respect him, that he's literally, we're going to let you run some of your college stuff. You teach us. I mean, Shanahan, who's as rigid as they get, hey, why don't you teach us your offense? That tells you how much they respect him. But I just,
But Smith, we're talking about.
I think Geno Smith is going to be the best college quarterback to the pros. Matt Barkley's not.
The best one this year, you mean? You're not talking about. He's not as good as either of the two guys last year.
No. Tannehill's much better than I ever thought. But Geno's big, strong, loves to throw, would rather not run, sit in a pocket. Reminds me a little bit of Andrew Luck. Can move if pressed, but just likes to sit, big body, make strikes, and sees the field very well. Throws to a variety of people.
Well, reminds me a little bit of Andrew Luck is a good thing to say, right? I mean, Andrew Luck, he had a tough week this week against the Jets. He had a terrific second half the week before against Green Bay. I think the stock is still very high on Luck.
Yeah,
no?
I mean, the thing about all these, Tannehill, Andy Dalton last year, Ponder, Cam Newton, they're all great. They're just not great every week. I mean, Brady, you sort of know what you're getting. He's very rarely does anybody say, Buffalo last year. You're like, oh, Brady was awful.
Yeah.
The young guys are all really good on some weeks, and then they struggle. It's just consistency. And I think that's developed if you're a radio host or a quarterback over time. You have less bad shows 15 years into our business.
I'm still waiting. Mike and Mike were brought to you by Dr. Pepper, proud sponsor of ESPN Radio's College Game Day Tour. Live this week, noon Eastern, live from Morgantown, West Virginia. You could win up to $100,000 in tuition by uploading a video telling them your story at drpepper.com. No purchase necessary, always one of a kind. We have quite a few significant predictions sure to go wrong to make. 2 great football games, 2 baseball games. What'll happen, we'll tell you next. Mike and Mike in the morning on ESPN Radio.
Welcome to our commercial.
So today we're going to discuss how to create the ultimate party playlist. There's no better tool for the job than the Rhapsody app. Start by searching for the songs you know you want and add them to your party playlist like this. You can even take requests or have your friends add to it as you go.
Ooh, Nirvana, Lil Wayne, and Sugarland.
With Rhapsody, you don't pay per song, so you can add as many songs as you want. My Party playlist has 2,786 songs.
Rhapsody. All the music you want, just $10 a month.
This game is a struggle, and you got to go out there and try to earn it every day. We got an opportunity to do something special. We got to come ready to fight.
Bama is in business again. Ray, touchdown, Tennessee. Electrifying, stunning.
Remember, if you want more Mike and Mike in the Morning, check out our new and improved webpage at espnradio.com.
Previously on Mike and Mike in the Morning.
And when my body said, I'm not going to do this anymore, I'm through, it was mentally, it was devastating. It was devastating not to be able to perform because the bottom line, the great ones, not only do it for themselves and do it, but more importantly, they do it for their team. They stand up for their team and they play for their team. And I always felt it was my responsibility to go out there and play for the guys that I played with, for the coaches, for the equipment guys, for the, you name it, for the trainers, all those guys. That was my responsibility. And I took a lot of pride in that. And I believed that was my calling. And when my body stopped working, when my body just said, forget you, I'm not going to do it. I always tell this story. The last year I was playing, and I was struggling, man. My knee was really bad. And I'll never forget, we're watching film, and it's middle of the season, and I'm trying to make this comeback. And we had these sweatshirts and everything else, and you couldn't see there was no number, right? It was just, we're out there practicing. And I'm watching this guy limp around and just look awful. And I remember sitting in the film room watching, and I'm going, dang, who is that? That's all. And I realized, oh, shoot, that's me. That's me limping around. That's me looking like I'm towing a boat. And at that point in my mind, I was like, I can't play anymore. I cannot play at the level that I've played at my whole career in spite of being injured. I can't do it anymore. And it was devastating. And then you realize I'm more of a hindrance to my team winning than I'm a help. Man, it's one of the worst feelings I've ever had in my entire life. To sit there and say, finally to walk up and say, guys, you know what? You're better off without me.
We are Mike and Mike in the Morning on ESPN Radio. Colin Cowherd in for Golick on this morning on what's been a really busy day. Mike and Mike brought to you by AutoZone. Get in the zone with AutoZone. We got 4 big games on the schedule today, Mr. Cowherd, that we should make some predictions on.
All right.
Let's start with the baseball. And we've got NLCS Game 4 tonight with Tim Lincecum back. We'll see if he's better than ever after a very impressive stint out of the bullpen. Mark Mulder earlier telling us he thinks that Lincecum's got his confidence level back a little bit. Big night for him with the Giants trying to even things up with the Cardinals rather than falling down 3-1. Do you think he gets it done?
No, I think San Francisco wins the series now. St. Louis wins the series going forward. I don't think this is a team you want to have to build self-esteem on. I think St. Louis is remarkably deep. I think St. Louis wins every remaining game in this series, and I think they win probably the World Series.
I go the other way. I agree with you. I picked them to win it in 7 to begin with. I think it'll be a well-pitched game tonight. Wainwright and Lincecum. I think Lincecum will pitch well. I think the Giants will find a way to win one of the 2 games in St. Louis. So I'll pick them to win today. I think I took the Cardinals in 7 to begin with. I'll stay with that. American League, Yankees doing what they will get a chance, we think, weather permitting, to try and do what they were going to try and do yesterday, and that is send Sabathia to the mound to keep their season alive against Max Scherzer. Do they do it?
No, I think it's, as Mulder said, that locker room's dead. There's controversy. There's blood, and the Vultures are circling. The Sharks are circling. I think Detroit can taste it. Scherzer's a bad matchup for a team struggling. He's a mid-90s hard thrower. This series was never a good matchup. I think it's ugly tonight, and they win, and they go to the World Series.
So you think the Tigers win it today in the sweep? What I said the other day before Game 3 was, and I know that you talk, I listen, to you driving home every day. I know you talk a lot about gambling and gamblers and what they know. If everything was as easy as it looks, then all those big buildings in Vegas wouldn't be there. If everything was as easy to project, surprising things happen. I'm not telling you I think the Yankees are going to come back and win this series. Don't get me wrong. But it just feels too easy for this thing just to end like this. Sabathia pitched a gem when they needed him in Game 5 against the Orioles. I think he pitches well today. I think one way or another the Yankees find a way to win a game and keep their season alive. And there's a part of me that thinks that they're going to put A-Rod in the game. And I'm sure I'm wrong. I'm sure I'm wrong. But there's a part of me that thinks that you're going to see A-Rod again.
I do too. I think, it's really interesting. Now that you've had the delay, do you insert him back in the lineup?
Well, there's this business where Girardi originally delivered a lineup to Leland that had A-Rod's name in it, and then he said it was a mistake. They sent him the wrong one. Well, why was there another one? They didn't change pitchers. So whatever lineup he filled out the first time and then changed it, he obviously was experimenting with different in his own, I don't know how you make out a lineup, more than one of them, but maybe you do. Instead of doing one in pen, you do a couple in pencil and you figure out what it's going to be. But he obviously hasn't ruled out the notion of A-Rod ever playing again for the rest of his life. And with everything going on that's going on right now, I don't know. Maybe it's just wishful thinking on my part because I'm hoping for the story. I don't think that the end of this story has been written yet.
If Chavez came up twice against Scherzer, strikes out both times, you go A-Rod.
I don't know that you don't start him. I mean, go down with the ship at this point. Nothing is working. Nothing they've tried has worked.
Max Scherzer, if asked, would rather face Chavez than A-Rod. Don't you think? I mean, it's still A-Rod.
At this point, I don't think any right-hand pitcher would be even remotely afraid of A-Rod. But I don't know. He's I guess not. Listen, I'll stick with the prediction. I think the Yankees are going to find a way to win today and keep the season alive. That's my official KOD pick. To the football, 2 good games tonight. You want the pro or the college first?
Pro.
San Francisco at home giving 7 to Seattle. Seahawks play tough defense. This is going to be a
Does this video make you question how hard it really is to kick a 63-yard field goal?
No, there's nothing that you can show me that's going to say this isn't hard. This is hard. What are you going to show me? Let me see. See, on the surface, I suppose that's mildly impressive. Mildly impressive. But let's think about this here. There's no pass rush, no snap. There's a tee. There is a holder who looks like George the Animal Steele. And the kicker is coming from about 400 yards back, fired out of a cannon of some sort that you don't see in the picture. No, get out of here. 63-yard field goals are hard. I do enjoy watching that holder, though.
Could you do that?
Oh, I couldn't do that. I could be the holder. I could be the holder in that photo. I could have been the holder, yeah.
I want to be the holder. You're the kicker.